Oh, hi, I'm Joshua Cash, and this is Wrong Opinion. You guys, this is going to be one of those rare episodes where it's pretty much a single topic. Maybe two if you count, it's about a person and about a movie. But this person was in that movie. Obviously, by now you already know. And you got an email saying, hey, the podcast is called Tom Cruise's America. So it's obviously going to be about Tom Cruise and about Top Gun. And you're going to be like, how does this pertain to my life? Why does this matter? Well, first of all, not every podcast has to be about woke teachers and tranny pedophiles and Joe Biden shitting himself or anything like that. Like, it's good to have a nice break once in a while. And, sometimes I do these types of episodes. For instance, today is about Tom Cruise and Top Gun and why they're both awesome. And then kind of like how Tom Cruise is like Steve Jobs and Donald Trump. Like, they're all kind of the same person. And then on Thursday, I'm interviewing this guy. His name is Forrest Moretti. Moretti? I don't know. But he wrote a book recently about how the polio virus is, and the vaccine and all of that, pure bullshit. Because everyone likes to point to the polio vaccine as the gold standard of vaccines, And I basically had this little kerfuffle in my family. Not really like a fight or anything, but where someone was like, hey, maybe you should at least give your son that vaccine. And I'm like, I don't trust any vaccines. And my gut is like, no, I don't want to do that. But I didn't have the information on hand as to why I think it's bullshit. So I had to look into it. And then I found this guy, Forrest Moretti, who wrote this book on polio and the vaccine. And I was like, man, that might be interesting because of that's like the main thing that props up the whole vaccine argument to begin with, because everyone knows the flu vaccine is bullshit. It doesn't do anything. If anything, it gets you sick all the time. You're not like building an immune system. You're not building. Also, I was thinking about this yesterday because, we allow our son to like touch things and like eat things off the ground and, obviously, like, we don't want him to choke on things, but, he'll eat sand and all this stuff, right? Because he's a baby. And that's him, naturally, that's how humans are wired. And then that's how you build an immune system is you're exposed to these things. Even the moment he was born, we allowed him to be around people and we passed him around with family. There was no quarantine ever with the baby. Some people might be like, oh, that's dangerous. You shouldn't do that. But all their kids end up with allergies. So, and Julian, really strong immune system. And it's because we don't really we're not overly protective with, him touching things and touching his mouth. And then I was kind of thinking like, why does that all of a sudden go out the window when you're an adult? Like we have this obsession with cleanliness and washing our hands. I'll give you two examples. The only times I'll wash my hands are after the gym and then in the shower. That's kind of it throughout the day. So like twice. But people are so obsessed with cleanliness and washing their hands and being afraid of germs and using Purell and all of that, which fucks up with your I can't remember what it's called, but it goes into your bloodstream basically. You shouldn't ever use that. And you shouldn't kill the germs off your body. We need those to survive. And I actually had a conversation with Harrison Smith of InfoWars about this when I was over there last week in Austin. And he was telling me how, and I want to talk to this guy I'm interviewing on Thursday about this. He was telling me how, I think it was in the 1800s, there was two competing theories. One was germ theory and the other was terrarium theory. And germ theory won, and that's kind of where we live now, and it's pure bullshit. So I hope the guy I'm interviewing on Thursday maybe knows about that more because I want to get into that as well. So as I said, today is Top Gun and Tom Cruise, and on Thursday is polio and the polio vaccine and how it's completely bullshit. And yes, we all got that vax, but maybe let's not give it to our kids or your future kids or what have you. So it's a pretty eclectic week of topics for you guys. I do like to change it up sometimes, and I don't like to be repetitive. And, it makes me feel crazy as well. And I want to give you guys the best bang for your buck. And if you're listening to the first 5 to 10 minutes of this on Spotify or iTunes, what the fuck are you doing? Huh? You can't throw me a few shekels a month to get amazing content? Come on, guys. Go to wrongop.gumroad.com and subscribe now, because I know who you are. And I see who's listening for free, and I'm like, what kind of American are you? You're definitely not Tom Cruise. You're definitely not that kind of American, and that guy's an all-American hero. Now, a lot of people have problems with Tom Cruise because they're like, he's crazy. He's a Scientologist. I would rather the type of crazy that Tom Cruise has than like the type of crazy pretty much every other, like the type of crazy that Charlize Theron has, who I think she adopted all her kids and they're all turning into trannies. Maybe it's not her, but pretty much there's like 10 celebrities like her that they adopt these kids or even have these kids, and then they groom them to be a certain way. I know that guy, Liev Schreiber, like it's countless celebrities, like Liev Schreiber, who's a very good actor. One of his sons dresses like a woman, a girl. He's, I think, 12 or 13. So obviously in a few years, he's going to be like, I'm a tranny. Yeah, because of the environment that kid grew up in groomed him to be that way. And the interesting thing about Tom Cruise, and I haven't really thought about Tom Cruise a lot lately. I mean, like once in a while, I'll watch one of his old movies and I'll be like, man, The Last Samurai, such a good movie. Interesting how, they basically made a movie about the turning point of Japan from, the traditional samurai values it had and into, basically embracing the West. They kind of started to do that even before World War II, which was interesting as well. Like the influence white people in the West had on Japanese culture came before World War II. And then pretty much after World War II, they totally bent the knee to the West and then embraced everything because they were so humbled after we completely destroyed them, which is sad because they have a very unique, interesting culture. So, so The Last Samurai is awesome. So I think about like some of his movies sometimes when I rewatch them, and but since I watched this movie Top Gun Maverick a few nights ago in Costa Rica, I've been now thinking about Tom Cruise the person. By the way, when I was watching this movie, and it wouldn't have been a Costa Rican movie theater experience if it didn't start raining on me towards the end of the movie. The movie theater was the kind of movie theater where you'll hear if it's raining a lot, raining hard outside, and it started to rain really, really hard. And then I got some drips on me, so towards the end of the movie on my left shoulder. So then I kind of had to lean to my right for the last 20 or 30 minutes of the movie as to not get wet. But it adds to that experience. People pay a lot of money for the, what's it called, 4D experience, with the senses. You can go to movie theaters where it sprays wind at you and like mist, and you can even smell certain things. You get that for free in Costa Rica. So I suggest watching these amazing big blockbuster movies in a third world country. I mean, it's maybe it actually ends up being more expensive because you have to buy a plane ticket and hotels and all of that. But again, I think it's very, very worth it. So I don't really remember the first movie, actually, the first Top Gun. I've seen it. I don't really remember it. It's a lot of people love it. Some people kind of think it's gay, homoerotic, and all of that. This is a good rule of thumb. Whenever someone says something is homoerotic, it most likely is just that there's, man camaraderie, like men being dudes with each other. And people are like, no, we can't have that. We can't have that. And this movie had a little bit of that, but I don't care because it's like one scene. It really didn't matter. I think it was kind of just paying homage to the original movie. So I'm going all over the place, but I think what Tom Cruise has figured out is that he doesn't need to convince the general population that he's a normal person. He's way past that. He doesn't care about that anymore. So when we saw that so-called mental breakdown in the early 2000s where he was jumping on a couch because he loved Katie Holmes and all of that, I think what that was he was kind of conflicted. He was in a turning point in his life, and he didn't know it yet. And he still tried to be that America sweetheart type of guy where everyone needs to love him and love who he is as a person, and where he he really just tried to convince people that he was a normal person. And the what we have now is a guy who has completely abandoned that and has completely embraced who he is as a absolutely crazy person, and he channels that into his movies, and you can actually clearly see it. He's always channeled these things into his movies, where he would have to learn a skill and master a skill in order to portray it believably on the screen. But he went to even further extremes than what he used to. Like, oh, I have to learn how to play the guitar really well, like actors do that. He's way past that. He's way past that. Like, if you see the stunts he does in the Mission Impossible movies and in this Top Gun movie, that's the real Tom Cruise. That's who this person is as an individual. He's a perfectionist. A nice example is a little bit after Steve Jobs died, there was a lot of salacious gossip that came out on him, how he was an abusive person and partner, and he was a piece of shit and all of that. But do we need Steve Jobs to be a nice person? Do we need Steve Jobs to be a good dad? Do we need him to be this, saint to look up to? And the answer is no. Because with regards to trailblazers and people pushing the needle and people basically providing something necessary to humanity and something that people want, and for for innovators, for someone to be a sort of innovator, they have to be crazy, they have to be assholes, they have to be almost like dictators. And Tom Cruise is also that person, and I think he has embraced that person. He used to try to hide who he is and the type of intense person he is, and now everyone knows he's a very intense person. So you kind of know the type of person you're going to go end up working with. And that's basically also like who Donald Trump is. Another rule of thumb is whenever the media goes after someone, that person is awesome. That person is typically awesome when the media starts to go after a person's character. They do it to Tom Cruise. They still do it to him. They do it to Donald Trump. They did it to Steve Jobs. Even Elon Musk, who I don't really like that much, and I do think he's a transhumanist globalist, they're starting to go after him because he has rebelled against the globalist ideals. So that's kind of like the good rule of thumb. I feel like the bad press that Tom Cruise got in the early 2000s is kind of the Tom Cruise we remember, and that's the guy we have in our head. And that's how powerful the programming is. They paint him as a certain person, and you might ask, well, why would they go after him in the early 2000s? He's just a celebrity. There wasn't even such a thing as social media or anything. And the reason is because on top of pushing Scientology, which, hey, I'm not a Scientologist. I don't like Scientology. I don't like it at all. And you can say that's a character flaw of Tom Cruise, but it kind of goes hand in hand with how intense he is and how autistic he is about mastering things and diving deep into things and being passionate about things. Sometimes passionate people will be passionate about things that you won't like Hitler was with killing Jews. Tom Cruise is that kind of guy, and in the early 2000s, he was going after psychiatry and psychiatrists and pharmaceuticals and Ritalin and Adderall and all of these things that no one was even talking about back then. No one knew the dangers of those things, and Tom Cruise knew. That's why I think this dude is interesting, because I'm not talking about his personal life. I could care less about his personal life and his relationships or fake relationships with women that were set up by Scientology itself to make him seem more normal. Like, I know all of these stories. I know people who were involved in these stories, and that's not interesting to me because I don't care about someone's personal life. But if someone's going to be public, and if they're going to say things out in the public that go against the grain, that if they actually do say these things in public and the gatekeepers will go after them, then I will say that is interesting to me. So I'm not interested in gossip, but I am interested in the person who has this platform, basically this ability to garner a lot of eyeballs, and it's interesting when they say interesting things that I agree with, because most of what celebrities say nowadays, it's pure bullshit, and it is crafted by PR people, and it's basically like a top-down thing. You don't really get original ideas or sincere opinions by these people. So one thing you can also probably agree with me on with regards to Tom Cruise is he's sincere with whatever it is he talks about, because you could tell he's such a passionate person and he's such an extremist with everything he talks about. When he talks about these things with certainty, that you have to kind of admire him. So you could do both things. You could be like, he seems like a creepy person, and I don't think I could be friends with him, but I also find him interesting. You could think both of those things at the same time. So let's talk about this movie for a second, and then I'm gonna get into clips and a bunch of other stuff. What they were able to accomplish with this movie is unfathomable. The way that they were able to put the camera on these, what are they, F-14s? F-18s? Whatever. F-18s, I think. Fighter jets is crazy. In a time when every movie that comes out is a stupid superhero movie with shitty CGI, and everything kind of feels like it was made in the same factory, it's nice to see real craftsmanship with movies. So you don't go to a Top Gun movie for the story. There is none. It doesn't matter. The story is stupid. I don't even really know who the bad guy is in the movie, because that's kind of my only gripe with this movie is it was very vague with who the bad guy is. My dad's like, it was clearly Iran, but then my little brother, who also saw it, was like, no, we're not supposed to really know who the bad guy is. It's some rogue nation or something. And I think that is due to globalism and selling this sort of movie in all territories worldwide, so we can't upset anyone really. And that's my only gripe with the movie. Literally, that's it. That's it. Because, but I think that this movie is still absolutely amazing, because that you're paying to see what the amazing things they were able to accomplish while making this movie. Now, again, there won't be any spoilers in this, because there's no story to spoil. Like, that would be like spoiling how someone made a movie. Like, that, there's no, you can't. When you talk about what they did, like that guy actually jumped off a building onto blah blah blah. That's fucking amazing. None of that was all in camera. That's basically what I'm talking about, because that's what you go to this movie for. You go to see what they were able to accomplish. So let's take a step back for a second. I do want to go back to who Tom Cruise is. Notice here in this clip, this is probably from like 2005 or something. Notice how he treats the media. Very few people ever, even to this day, go after the media. They're scared of the media, and he clearly isn't. Because when they step over the line, he's going to call them out. That's what the media does, is they constantly push the boundaries and step over the line and get way too personal, and they have no shame.
Was Nicole the love of your life?
What do you mean, Peter?
You were married for 10 years.
Listen, we raised children. How do you answer
struggling.
that? How do you answer that question? She's someone that I plan on getting married again.
You do?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
And having kids?
absolutely.
But Nicole was a major part of your life and a love of your life at the time.
I loved Nick very much. There's no question.
Would you like Nicole to remarry?
Yes. I want Nicole to be happy. That's what I want.
And do you have a relationship where you talk, it's a parenting relationship, and talk professionally about each other's work?
Listen, here's the thing, Peter.
Yeah.
So this is where it's going to get interesting. This is where he pushes back, and this is what I like about him.
You're stepping over a line now. You're stepping over a line. You know you are.
I suppose they're questions
Peter,
that people want to know.
Peter, you want to know. Take responsibility for what you want to know. Don't say what other people. This is a conversation that I'm having with you right now.
You're right.
Okay. So I'm just telling you right now. Okay? Just put your manners back in.
Do you think I was out of line?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I apologise for that
Good.
sincerely.
Good.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. You don't see many people do that. You don't even see politicians do that. Like, again, the only person I can really think of is maybe Ron DeSantis, Trump. That's about it. That's kind of about it. And you definitely don't see celebrities do that because they're all scared. He's such a powerhouse, he's not scared. Like, this movie is... It kind of, like, proves the point that if you make something really cool and if you put a lot of hard work into it, people are going to flock to see it. Not only that, but the audience score is like an A+. That's unheard of. Movies don't get an audience score of A+. And I'm going to kind of go all over the place with this because I don't want to forget, and this is on my mind right now. As I was watching the movie, I kind of realized that I have a massive problem with nostalgia. I have a massive problem with those movies that are like, remember when blah, blah, blah? Like, I didn't see the last Ghostbusters movie, but I heard that that's what that movie was. It was just callbacks to things in the past. This movie does that, but not in an egregious way. It does it pretty tastefully. And it also did something really interesting, which was it managed to make the movie feel like it was made in the 80s without any 80s aesthetic. You know what I mean? Like, the vibe of the movie was of an America that doesn't exist and hasn't existed since the 80s. An America where you still revered the military and the country and where there's a sense of nationalism to it. And it felt like... So nostalgia makes you want to kind of go back to a time that you remember fondly. And the reason why this wasn't like that type of movie was because it takes place nowadays, and it basically makes you nostalgic for a time that never happened. I think that's pretty interesting. I don't know if they did that on purpose, but it's not something I ever experienced with a movie, if that makes sense. Like, the time in this movie never happened. Never happened. So it's not like, oh, this is still in the 80s and it's just a period piece in the 80s. No. This is now. This is 2022. But it doesn't exist. Very interesting. So in the early 2000s as well, because Tom Cruise was going after things you're not allowed to talk about, again, pharmaceuticals and psychiatry and all that. Like, to this day, you can't talk bad about those types of things. The media turned on him and defamed his character, which he kind of gave them fodder to do that. Like, he didn't do himself any favors being really excited about his relationship with Katie Holmes. He's a good actor, but he didn't pull that one off very well. But they did go after him, and they did paint it like he's having a mental breakdown. So this is one of those clips that it's very, very interesting. in the lens of today because how ahead of the time he was. Like, he's saying talking points that all right-wing bodybuilders say, like all right-wing fitness people on Twitter. This is things that people are saying now. He was saying this in 2005.
Coming up, the mood changes a bit. You're going to see a fiery Tom Cruise talk about his attack on Brooke Shields, antidepressants, and Ritalin for kids.
I've never agreed with psychiatry, ever. Before I was a Scientologist, I never agreed with psychiatry. And then when I started studying the history of psychiatry, I started realizing more and more why I didn't agree with psychiatry. And
I've had episodes of this podcast way back when I was on Patreon, like a year and a half ago, called Therapy is Bullshit. And I'm basically saying what he's saying here, but he's pretty eloquent about it. And I like the intensity. Like in this clip, this is 3.5 minutes. He's super intense. And a nice example is this. When you have Chris Evans, if that's his name, the guy who played Captain America, who tweets woke shit like all day long. All he does is tweet woke shit. And when the shooting happened last week, he was like, enough is enough. He tweeted something like that, like something really stupid. I guarantee you it's fake intensity. I guarantee you it's not something he really, truly has a strong opinion about, because he's just saying what he's supposed to say, and then he can continue working in Hollywood and getting the parts he wants. And, he's playing politics. This dude, Tom Cruise, is not playing politics, and he is sincere in what he is saying, and he's super intense about it.
as far as the Brooke Shields thing is, look, you gotta understand, I really care about Brooke Shields. I think here's a wonderful and talented woman. And I want to see her do well. And I know that psychiatry is a pseudoscience.
But Tom, if she said that this particular thing...
Wait, sorry. Psychiatry is a pseudoscience. He said this in 2005. Do you see what's happening today? Literally, every psychiatrist right now is diagnosing children with trans, whatever it's called. Trans kids. That's what's validating this notion that trans kids are real. It's psychiatrists. They're convincing kids, yeah, you were born in the wrong body. If that's not pseudoscience, which pretty much all science nowadays is pseudoscience, then I don't know what is. And they're just, psychiatrists are like master brainwashers. That's what they are. I always say, this is my example I always give. Go to 10 different psychiatrists, 10. The top of the line, the most recommended psychiatrists, and tell them to a T the exact same thing that's bothering you. Like, to a T, don't change anything. They will all give you different advice. I mean, and also, like, I lump in like couples therapists with psychiatrists and therapists in general, and it's all bullshit. 9 out of 10 couples therapists are going to go against the guy. Always. It's always going to be 2 women against 1 guy. That's just how it is.
Helped her feel better, whether it was the antidepressant or going to a counselor or a psychiatrist. Isn't that enough?
Matt, you have to understand this. Here we are today, where I talk out against drugs and psychiatric abuses of electric shocking people, okay, against their will, of drugging children with them not knowing the effects of these drugs. Do you know what Adderall is? Do you know Ritalin? Do you know now that Ritalin is a street drug? Do you understand that?
The difference is...
This is super powerful, everything he's saying. And I said this on the last episode, which I actually released for you guys on the Gumroad, which was my Saturday live show on Censored TV. And I always say this every time the gun debate, the fake gun debate happens. Why does no one talk about pharmaceuticals? No one talks about psychotropic drugs and how they do hand them out like candy to young kids because they have fake illnesses. They have fake chemical imbalances. Like, what do you think the outcome of that will be if you drug whole generations of kids? You think they're going to grow up to be happy kids, happy, stable kids? No, obviously not. And then the ones who are going to be predisposed to be absolutely crazy, maybe because they have a mental problem, which it's usually the environment that they grow up in. How do you think they're going to react? Why are you surprised that school shootings are happening? I mean, it's many things. It's the media plastering their face everywhere, giving them the recognition that they want and think that they deserve. But it's also the environment that they grow up in. And I think that drugging them since they're young has to play heavily into that. And there are going to be negative consequences and repercussions by doing that. So Tom Cruise is right.
This was not against her will, though. But this wasn't against Brooke's will.
Matt, I'm asking you a question.
I understand there's abuse of all of these things.
No, you see, here's the problem. You don't know the history of psychiatry. I do.
Aren't there examples, and might not Brooke Shields be an example of someone who benefited from one of those drugs?
All it does is mask the problem.
True. I mean, this dude is not backing down. How do you not like that? But he's a crazy Scientologist. Yeah, I don't care. Like, who the fuck cares about his personal life when he says these sorts of things publicly? I think that this trumps his personal life. And we also, like, what's this notion that we should care about celebrities' personal lives? That's kind of what I like about him is like, okay, he stopped with his personal life stuff. He abandoned that. He's like, okay, I can't convince people I'm not crazy. I'm going to embrace my crazy. I'm going to channel it into my work. I'm going to be the most intense person ever. And you're going to be able to see it on the screen pay off. Like, that is what we want out of celebrities. We don't need to hear about their personal lives. We don't need to hear about their Scientology or anything like that. And when they do say something semi-political, it should be something real, and this is all very real.
And if you understand the history of it, it masks the problem. That's what it does. That's all it does. You're not getting to the reason why. There is no such thing as a chemical imbalance.
I've said that before. People are like, but what about chemical imbalances? That's a cope. That's a massive cope. It's not real. It's like literally not true. This is something I have to talk to the guy on Thursday about. But I when I was doing research, I like doing that now. It pisses people off. When I was doing research about the polio vaccine, I basically came to the conclusion that there was no polio. It's not. They just like named something like, oh, you got poisoned by DDT. I guess this is something called polio. So I want to ask this guy. Did they ever isolate the virus, which is polio? Did they ever isolate that? Is it real? Does it even exist? Because I'm starting to believe it's not like like COVID. Obviously, they released something and people were getting sick, but is there a COVID virus? Every time they show us the COVID virus, it's an illustration. Why haven't we seen it isolated? What is in the vaccine? What is it?
Postpartum depression to you is
Matt,
kind of a little psychological gobbledygook?
No, I did not say that.
I'm just asking, what would you call it?
Matt, that is the post. Now you're talking about two different things.
But that's what she went on the antidepressant for.
But what happens, the antidepressant, all it does is mask the problem. There's ways of vitamins and through exercise and various things. I'm not saying that is...
Every right-wing bodybuilder, Anon, on Twitter says, this is what we say. Everyone.
Isn't real. That's not what I'm saying. That's an alteration of what I'm saying. I'm saying that drugs aren't the answer. That these drugs are very dangerous. They're mind-altering, antipsychotic drugs. And there are ways of doing it without that so that we don't end up in a brave new world. The thing that I'm saying about Brooke is that there's...
I mean, even that point, a brave new world, that's what that book is about. You know what's funny is everyone's like, we're literally living in 1984 times because that's the only frame of reference. That's kind of like how people on the left always talk about Harry Potter and Trump is literally Voldemort or Star Wars. Like, that's their only frame of reference. Everyone on the right, because they don't read or anything, they're always like, it's like literally like 1984, but no, we're actually living in a brave new world. Aldous Huxley was smarter than George Orwell, and he was more on the money than George Orwell.
Misinformation, okay? And she doesn't understand the history of psychiatry. She doesn't understand in the same way that you don't understand it, man.
But a little bit what you're saying, Tom, is you say you want people to do well, but you want them to do well by taking the road that you approve of, as opposed to a road that may work for them.
No, No, I'm not.
Well, if
Tom Cruise in here, and in general, I guess, he's basically like a autistic savant up against a midwit who's Matt Lauer. Matt Lauer is the midwit, like, but it works for some people. But, like, wouldn't you agree that it kind of is fine for some people and it's not fine for other people? And Tom Cruise is like, no, you're a fucking idiot. I've done the research. I'm an autistic savant and you're not.
if antidepressants work for Brooke Shields, why isn't that okay?
I disagree with it. And I think that there's a higher and better quality of life. And I think that promoting, for me personally, see, you're saying, what, I can't discuss what I want to discuss?
No, you absolutely
I know,
can.
but Matt, you're going in and saying that I can't discuss that.
I'm only asking, isn't there a possibility that, do you examine the possibility that these things do work for some people? That yes, there are abuses, and yes, maybe they've gone too far in certain areas. Maybe there are too many kids on Ritalin. Maybe electric shock.
Too many kids on Ritalin, Matt.
I'm just saying, but aren't there
Matt,
examples where it works?
Matt, you don't even, you're glib. You don't even know what Ritalin is.
Matt, you're retarded, okay? You're retarded.
If you start talking about chemical imbalance, you have to evaluate and read the research papers on how they came up with these theories, Matt, okay? That's what I've done. And you go and you say, where's the medical test? Where's the blood test that says how much Ritalin you're supposed to get?
I mean, come on. How do you not, even just for that, how do you not like him? Look, I'm not really trying to convince you he's awesome and whatever, but I'm kind of trying to convince you, like, this is the ultimate celebrity and there will never be anyone else like him in our lifetime. Because if you think about it, I guess the only person who comes close to him would be someone like Nicolas Cage, someone who's really intense, very weird, and always reinvents himself. He's an interesting guy. But Tom Cruise kind of takes it to another level by being absolutely insane and then putting it on screen for us and making these absolutely amazing over-the-top movies that no one's really doing anymore because CGI and all celebrities are gay and they don't do their own stunts. Like Jackie Chan, like imagine complaining about Jackie Chan because he is friends, he's like a member of the Chinese Communist Party, like he has a choice. And then forgetting the fact that it's some guy who's done all his stunts throughout the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and we were all entertained about that. Like, that's kind of the main thing, so we should be entertained about that. So, like I said, go see Top Gun. It's amazing. I'll actually show you some clips of, like, the making of, but let's see my take on this movie for a second. I feel like I mentioned these points already, but let's just see. I said, the America in this movie doesn't exist, but it is what could have existed, which is what's fascinating to me. And I did mention that earlier. Like, it did feel like it's obviously taking place in current year, but maybe it's like the current year, but like Bill Clinton didn't win the presidency, and I don't know, like George W. Bush or George H.W. Bush wouldn't have been better, but like something like we didn't do a deal with China, a trade deal with China in the early 90s, and then we would still have jobs here and people would still have some sort of nationalistic values, and maybe social media wasn't invented. Like no one's using phones in this movie at all except Tom Cruise. He's texting with someone twice. Other than that, there's like no phones. The aviation technology has obviously progressed, but like there's no phones, no social media, nothing like that. Like the vibe of the movie felt like it was still in the 80s, which was cool. I feel like I made just go watch the movie. You'll see what I mean. And then back to the Tom Cruise thing. I said, Tom Cruise is crazy, yes, but what trailblazer isn't? He takes risks, and sometimes they don't work. A lot of the time they do. He is America personified, and that's why the media hates him. That's kind of my point also, is the successes, the many successes of the United States of America had to do with individuals, typically men, taking risks. Lois and Clark and many others. No, and And I think that's kind of what makes America great. It's like we have this environment. Even to this day, we still kind of have this environment where you come to America, or you were born in America, and you take massive risks, and you can change the world, because we still have that sort of mentality here, but really not so much anymore. And that's Tom Cruise. It's like he takes risks. Sometimes he comes off as crazy and mean or whatever, but more than not, they pay off. And I think that's kind of interesting. Like, back to Steve Jobs. That dude took risks. And he was a piece of shit to many people, but Apple under him succeeded. You know what we have now? Apple run by a gay guy who is not a visionary, who's just managing the decline, the slow decline of Apple. He's there to manage the decline of Apple, like Joe Biden is in there to manage the decline of the United States of America, and then hand it off to the globalists. That's it. And we need more people, and we need to revere more people who take massive risks and are like a net positive for society. And I think he's a net positive. Someone asked me, like, was this like just a big advertisement for the military and for the Navy? And I was like, yes, it was. But think about everything that you watch now. Everything is propaganda. Now, there's good propaganda and bad propaganda. Good propaganda is something like Top Gun, where it makes you want to join the military. Now, don't get fooled, because the military in that movie isn't how the military is now. I'll get to that later. The military we have now has been completely overran by woke people and women and trannies and gays and whatever. So the military in this movie is the natural progression in a stable, happy country, which is not what we have now. So don't get fooled and join the military because of this movie. Definitely don't do that. But enjoy this movie, and let's strive to be like that country in that movie. That's what we should do, is strive to be the country that is portrayed in this new Top Gun movie. So that's good propaganda. Good propaganda, allows you to immerse yourself in entertainment or what have you that fosters like a positive environment for your country, as opposed to literally every other propaganda right now, which is meant to dismantle the country we're living in, make you hate it, make you throw away the heroes and legends you grew up with, and replace them with George Floyd. There's two types of propaganda, good and bad. The bad makes you believe you're tranny. The good makes you believe that you could be a hero like Maverick in Top Gun. I'd rather the latter, which is Top Gun. Like, it used to be that movies were made for young men and boys and whatever to have someone to look up to, whereas now it just makes you question your sexuality or something. So I think it's good propaganda. Now, Tom Cruise even had bad press like a year ago or 2 years ago. And this was with regards to... So someone made this point to me when I posted about the Tom Cruise episode I'm filming right now. I posted about it yesterday, and someone made the point like, well, Tom Cruise was like a maskie. He was a masked Nazi on his set of his movie, and he's just like everyone else. And I was like, I vaguely remember that story. I'm going to go read the article, but I feel like you're wrong. And the person was wrong. So I'll read you the quote, and I'll tell you why that person was wrong. Tom Cruise stands by his expletive-laden MI6, Mission Impossible 7, rant over COVID-19. And then it says, I said what I said. So basically, he had blown a short fuse, and he went off on a crew member for, I think, not wearing a mask. And it's not because he believed COVID is deadly and believed that masks work, but let's read his quote. It says here, I said what I said. And and it says, let's see. If I see you do it again, you're fucking gone. And if anyone on this crew does it, that's it. In the audio, crews can be heard shouting, "We are the gold standard. They're back there in Hollywood making movies right now because of us, because they believe in us and what we're doing. I'm on the phone with every fucking studio at night, insurance companies, producers, and they're looking at us and using us to make their movies. We are creating thousands of jobs, you expletive. I don't ever want to see it again." So I guess what people don't understand is Tom Cruise is also the producer of all his movies. And typically when actors are the producer of their movies, it's just a title that's given to them in order to give them more money and make them feel happy. But with regards to him, he really is the producer of his movies. And he does put in a lot of work into them. And you have to think about the stress that this dude has by filming Mission Impossible 7, which is going to be a 2-part movie during the fake pandemic when movies and productions were shut down for idiotic reasons. And his movie is probably a $200 or $250 million movie. And when those things get shut down, sometimes they like never start them back up, and then they scrap the whole movie. So imagine the amount, and especially because this dude is a perfectionist, imagine the amount of pressure he was under while filming the movie. So it's not that he thought masks work, but he knew that people were watching. And he knows that he has a target on his back. So if someone wanted to fuck with him and wanted to shut down production because there were pictures taken of people not wearing masks, then he would be fucked. And not only would he be fucked, but the thousands of people that the movie employs would be fucked. So that's kind of what I got from this. And I think that when the story broke, I didn't really cover it because that's what I felt. It's that it wasn't really about the masks. It was more about like, hey, I have all this pressure on me and we need to keep making this movie or else like movies will just not be made anymore. So, yeah. So even that won't make me hate him. This is an example of someone who hated this movie, by the way. It's a woke dude I found on Twitter. And he hates what I described as what was awesome about the movie and about Tom Cruise himself, which is a trailblazer, someone who takes risks, and someone who will put himself out there. So this guy, his name is David Roberts. He wrote, "I have perhaps unwisely allowed my family to persuade me to go see the new Top Gun on the big screen today. Someday, when I want to irritate everyone on here, I'm going to write a long thread on Top Gun and the trope of the white guy who can't be bothered to follow the rules, only his instincts, and the authority figures around him roll their eyes but put up with it because he's so awesome." Dude, how do you think the country that you are so comfortable living in was made? And now it's falling apart because these types of people don't really exist anymore. And that's what I like about Tom Cruise in real life is he is that guy. He is that character that's on screen. That's him. That's who he is. He's a crazy guy who takes risks. We need more of those types of people. Like imagine, again, back to Steve Jobs, like someone wrote an article or a book on him or whatever after he died. Like he was a mean guy and he said mean things and he was a horrible dad. But yeah, you have an iPhone because of him. There's such a thing as an app store because of him. That's maybe good or bad. A lot of bad has come out of it, but the dude is definitely an innovator. And then the thread continues. "Even as a child in small town Tennessee with no frame of reference and nothing to compare it to, I hated that trope. Probably because you didn't have a dad, which dominated U.S. popular culture for decades and still largely does." I mean, that's what legends are, dude. It's not just the United States. That's literally legends. Like you hear stories from hundreds of years ago. Alexander the Great. You think Alexander the Great followed rules? Julius Caesar. He crossed the Rubicon. Do you think he literally didn't follow the rules and he changed all of Rome for forever? Like, this is what men do. This is what real men do, is they push the envelope and then future men can live off of the accomplishments of past men without having to be as brave or without having to be as much of a trailblazer or anything like that. Like, this dude literally is saying, I hate manhood. Because, like, I hate white men and manhood, even though I am a white man. It's just that I'm too scared to be this type of person. I hate this type of person because I am too scared to be this type of person, is what this guy is saying. Very interesting. And you're looking into this movie a little bit too deeply, man. Like, the movie is supposed to... It's supposed to amaze you, and it does that very effectively. I'll show you why in the making of Top Gun. So then he continues. My Top Gun Maverick verdict, it was neither better nor worse than expected. Lots of bad cheeseball dialogue. First of all, I'm not going to go see a Top Gun movie for the dialogue. I'm not going to go see it for like the backstory and the hidden meaning behind blah, blah, blah. And like, it's an allegory on blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm at a point in my life where I hate smart movies because they're retarded. You know what I mean? Like, show me something cool on the screen, and not only that, but like, if you actually did it in real life, that's even cooler to me. Like, that would amaze me even more if it was accomplished in real life as opposed to in a computer. So I don't care about the dialogue. I don't care about the story or the characters or whatever. I care about if it's awesome, and it's fucking awesome. One-dimensional characters, tired tropes, and fan service. But all the high-flying boom boom stuff is really well done, and the tribute to Val Kilmer is legitimately sweet. All you need in this movie is the fly boom boom stuff, you fucking retard. The characters are supposed to be one-dimensional. I don't need to... Like, for instance, I'll give you a really, really, really good example. The movie Dunkirk is awesome. The movie Dunkirk, again, is a movie that a lot of this stuff in the movie, Christopher Nolan did it in camera, practical effects, real shots of airplanes dogfighting in the air. The characters were not given any dialogue to be like, I got a girl back at home. I hope I get to see her again, blah, blah, blah. It didn't do any of that because all it was supposed to do was mess with time, show you a non-traditional way of telling a war story, and supplying you with amazing visuals. So, like, this dude wants to hate this movie, but he's saying the fly stuff is really cool and well done. Yeah, that's all you need. That's literally all you need from this movie. And then he says, one thing I noticed, which I think may be an innovation, the bad guys in the film, the ones enriching uranium, are never identified. Hey, that's what I said. No nationality, location, or motivation, just generic bad guys in black uniforms and black planes. Got to get that international box office. So that's actually my only complaint about the movie. And this guy wasn't that stupid. He actually noticed that as well, which is true. That's kind of my problem with globalism. It's like the bad guys in these sorts of movies are supposed to be vague because you don't want to upset anyone and all of that. That is my only problem with the movie, and that takes the weight out of like the mission in the movie just a little bit. Like, for instance, if he was fighting the Chinese in this movie, and because we are really at war with China, but we're not participating in the war. It's a one-sided war, them on us. And they're completely taking advantage of us. So if the Chinese were the bad guys in this movie, it would kind of like add that weight that you might want in this sort of movie. Let's look at the making of this. This is a 9-minute video I ripped off of YouTube. If you want to go watch it, just type in making of Top Gun and you'll find it. There's many of these videos. They're all really awesome. I forget which channel this is from. IGN, something like that. But let's watch a little bit of this. It's really cool.
In an age where computer-generated special effects reign supreme in cinema, Top Gun Maverick is a Mach 10 breath of fresh air. The lengths Tom Cruise and co have gone to in order to deliver as realistic aerial sequences as possible are unprecedented.
One thing I remembered, it might have been from this video actually, is that not only did they not film like this on green screen or anything, but even the close-up shots, which they didn't have to do flying in the air, they did it flying in the air in order to get those natural expressions you would get from flying 600 miles an hour or whatever. So the actors were really... Oh, and they're going to say it in here also, but it's just a really cool fact is when the actors would go up in the air, and they would have to do their own makeup and lighting and set up the cameras properly, and then they would come back down after being away for like an hour or two, and then the director would have to look at the footage and then send them back up and fix certain things, which is pretty cool.
Borderline unimaginable to execute practically through a camera lens. For director Joe Kosinski though, there was never really another option.
I think when you see the film, you really feel what it's like to be a Top Gun pilot. You can't fake that. You can't fake the G-forces, you can't fake the vibration, you can't fake what it looks like to be in one of these fighter jets. We wanted to capture every bit of that, and shooting it for real allowed us to do that.
Capturing these scenes was never going to be a walk in the park though, and before any of the actors could even step inside the planes they'd call their sets for the foreseeable future, a rigorous Navy-approved boot camp lay ahead.
I mean, it was a lot. What Tom does.
Yeah, and they're going to say it here also, but I have to say it before they do. Tom Cruise put together the whole training thing. Like, the dude is so crazy that and so meticulous that he will do that. You know who also was very crazy and meticulous was Stanley Kubrick, who Tom Cruise was in his last movie ever made, Eyes Wide Shut, which I suggest you see if you haven't. And again, that just proves, like, you have to be kind of crazy and you have to be anal about these things in order for us to get an awesome product. By the way, this, if you haven't noticed, this podcast is brought to you by Top Gun. Paramount Studios paid me money to do this. I'm kidding.
For fun, I think, is other people's like hell. It really was quite tough, but the only way this film happens is if you have somebody like Tom dedicating as much time and effort to us.
Tom designed a 3-month training course for them to go through because
That's crazy. What actor or producer or whatever, who does that?
he had shot the first Top Gun, he's a pilot, he flies aerobatics, he's done aerial sequences in movies for years. So he designed a program that would get them as ready as they could be to be in a Super Hornet. And it took 3 months for them to go through it. And that doesn't mean it was easy for them to be in the F-18. It's still tremendously difficult and taxing, but at least they were able to get through it and do what they needed to do and capture these scenes.
Once training was complete, it was time to get into the air. Steady steps needed to be taken. But for Miles Teller, it was a challenge he welcomed.
It started out as excitement because we were flying in a, like in a Cessna. So it's just like, hey, we're going, and this is basically, if you want to get your pilot's license, this is step number 1, boys. And then like the next time we went up in the Cessna, they're like, all right, now we're gonna do a controlled stall, and he turns off the engine. So now you're just free falling in a plane. And so it got pretty real pretty quick, to be honest with you. And then that excitement turned into a lot of adrenaline and I think a healthy amount of kind of nerves.
Working out training for the actors and getting them flight ready was one thing. Working out how these highly ambitious aerial sequences would actually be shot was another thing entirely.
Hey, look, have you noticed we're a couple of guys, you and I, or if you're a woman, a couple of people just watching a YouTube video together. I mean, like, I already watched this video yesterday, but I'm again captivated.
Fortunately, Kosinski and the crew had decades of action movie experience on their side.
Tom's been making movies for 40 years and done big aerial sequences, so he knew how difficult it was going to be to capture all of this, so definitely benefited from his experience. He did an aerial sequence in American Made, he did one.
I gotta rewatch that movie. Let's fast forward. There was like, yeah, look, like, it's all real. That's so crazy. There was a scene in the beginning of the movie. Oh yeah, this part. Where I thought, like, I was watching this and I'm like, okay, that was probably CGI. But no, this scene was real, which is crazy.
Key for Kosinski, who had to meticulously plan every single motion the planes would make while up in the sky. Because once those planes took off, the entire scene was purely in the hands of the actors and their pilots.
I would be there on the flight line, setting up the cameras all the way until the canopy closed, but once they pulled away, I didn't see them until they came back an hour later.
So the only person you could talk to was...
All right, that's what I told you before, but there was a scene in the beginning of the movie. Where are we? Is it in this video? You guys got to watch this movie. I'm like fast forwarding a lot through this because I don't want to show the whole video, but... Oh yeah, this.
Left that in the film. Even the scene where Dark Star flies over Ed Harris, it destroyed the set. You watch, it rips the roof off the guard shack. That was not planned. That was a one-take thing where we destroyed the set, and that's the only shot we got, and that's in the movie.
It's this level of realism that the filmmakers could only have dreamt of when originally planning how these practical shots would come together.
Yeah, all right, so you get the idea. I got sucked into that, I'm sorry. I would love to know what you think about this movie if you saw it, what you thought about this movie if you saw it. And if you haven't seen it, you guys should go see it, especially if you have kids. Like, this is an awesome movie to take your kids to. There's no woke stuff in it. They do have like a female pilot character who, there's nothing like I'm a woman and I can do what men can. I can do also what men do, but better. But there was none of that. Like, she didn't say anything like that. There's like nothing bad in the movie except like it's gonna just amaze your kids if you have kids. They should definitely see this movie. Because like I said before, this is what I wish the country was still like, because what we have now, and this is an example that's been going around on Twitter for the past week or so, is the woke military. And we always have videos like these. This one had, like, at the time of downloading the video, it had like almost 2 million views. And it's a shame what our military has turned into. And it's because bureaucrats and globalists and communists basically took over the country. So this is what we have now, and this is what I don't like, and it's a shame. So it's a black woman in the military, private, just yelling at everyone, yelling at her superiors, cursing at that. This looks like it was filmed in like South Beach, you know, like a drunken woman outside of a nightclub. But no, this is in the military.
Kelly, fever. Get out of my hair! Get out of my hair! Yeah, they're getting security guard right there. You got me messed up.
That's the complete opposite of what I was talking about the past hour. That's what I don't like. That's what I don't like I don't like what our country turned into. And it's that. There's no reverence. There's no for the country or the military or anything like that anymore. It's very sad. It's very sad. There's only one more thing I want to talk about before ending this podcast, and it kind of pertains to this whole thing, you know, the military and all that. Little boys love the military. Inherently, like, they love playing army, they love the military, and it's a shame. We wouldn't need to have recruiting centers or like these seminars where the military goes to poor schools and try to recruit people if the country was healthy and happy, and people grew up revering the country. Like, we wouldn't need any of these sorts of things because it just would be a given. Kids would want to go to the military, but you drug them at a young age, like what Tom Cruise was talking about. You destroy economically their communities. You destroy the family. You destroy everything about that makes a country, and why would anyone want to join the military? You know, why would they want to serve and protect? Why would they want to do anything like that? So then you would need the recruiting centers, and you would need to prey on poorer, less fortunate people, whereas before, in a happy, healthy society, Even rich people joined the military. Everyone joined the military because it was what you did as your civic duty. Like, you just did it. So when I saw this going around, this is like Ukrainian boys playing war, and I saw this conservative take. I'm like, you're retarded, dude. So this was going around last week. This guy Pedro L. Gonzalez, who I see his tweets a lot. You know, a lot of things he says are right on the money and smart, but this was retarded. So Reuters put out a video of a 12 and 6-year-old, 12-year-old Andriy and 6-year-old Valentin built checkpoints and dug trenches in the village of Stoinka near Kiev. The two boys want to be soldiers when they grow up and hope to defend their country one day. So Pedro L. Gonzalez wrote, "We've reached the actually child soldiers are good phase of the war." No, dude, that's not what this is. That's not what this is. This is not Congo, Africa. This is not that. You're not, you know, what's it called? You're not like drugging little kids in Africa with cocaine and gunpowder, which it's a thing. You mix cocaine and gunpowder. They do that and they give it to little kids and make them join the army. That's not what this is. This is kids being kids. Stop looking too deeply into it. Let's watch like 2 seconds.
We want to become soldiers when we grow up. We'll become army men.
So obviously this is propaganda. This is supposed to pull at your heartstrings, tug at your heartstrings and all of that. And be like, man, we really should support Ukraine, you know. But what these two kids are doing, these two kids were used for propaganda, obviously. That's why there's a story. And that's maybe what Pedro Gonzalez meant, was that the media is kind of framing it that way. But when I saw this video, I'm like, no, it's just two kids playing army. Like, every young boy does that.
We will be making automatic rifles. We already have bazookas, missile machines, even javelins, all wooden. I made all of this by myself, the javelins and even howitzer systems, with a
because they like playing army.
little help. It's interesting to dig trenches.
You guys ever see that TikTok? It went viral like a year ago or so, where it's just boys at a beach digging a massive trench and massive hole, and then like women were like, "What is it with men and digging trenches and holes? Like, why are they so fascinated by that?" It's kind of like that that old meme on Twitter where black people are like, "Why do white people like to hike up a mountain?" It's because people like feeling a sense of accomplishment, you know? And boys like doing that sort of stuff too. Like, it's just ingrained in them.
I made these two checkpoints by myself. My friends helped me with the third one. I dug most of the trenches by myself. Valik helped me. We were digging and digging for 2 days already.
Oh my God, a story of boys being boys. That's all it is. That's all it is. Imagine if we had a serious country. Imagine if we had a country the country that was portrayed in the new Top Gun movie. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. But sadly, the new Top Gun movie is fiction. Sadly, we do not live in that world anymore. Sadly, we live in a globalist hellhole that wants to erase any semblance of tradition or nationalism or anything like that and replace it with globo homo. That's the world we live in. And that's why I think you should go see this movie, because it's the world that could have been. And you get to see amazing stunts that doesn't exist anymore, because Tom Cruise is a insane person who is a perfectionist and who wants to amaze the audiences and give them the best bang for their buck. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed a very different wrong opinion, a very basically a single topic episode, which I don't do many of these. Once in a while I do. And yeah, guys. Well, Thursday it's going to be about polio. Okay, another single topic episode. Very interesting stuff. Tell your friends to subscribe. Every subscription helps a ton. I'm glad you guys are here. And on that note, I'm Josh Cash. That was Wrong Opinion. Here's a song. I love you. Bye.